Hey, welcome back to VOX TERRA. You might have the impression that everything's moving in a greener direction, and in some regards it is. And regarding the stimulus, you might be thinking, well, we're moving towards like green stimulus, electric vehicles, it's all renewable energy. But it's really not that simple. It's not that simple. It's that all the stimulus money, not very much of it is actually going towards anything green. Let me cite from you today from The Guardian. From The Guardian, global green recovery plans fail to match 2008 stimulus by Fiona Harvey, Friday 12th, February 2021. The percentage of stimulus money that the world countries are spending today, the percentage of it is actually lower on green spending than it was during the 2008 stimulus. The percentage. Now, at the outset of this pandemic, when they were talking about all the stimulus money and lots of money being spent, I cited for you an article, a study from Oxford, showing that green stimulus creates more jobs and more wealth for average people than does what they often call carbon-intensive spending, like supporting fossil fuel industry, the airlines, oil and gas, infrastructure, and pipelines. Now, when we think about low carbon or what will overall lead towards a less polluting economy, what comes to mind is generally wind turbines and solar panels, also energy efficiency, electric vehicles, and charging stations, but it's more than that. There's another category called natural climate solutions, which would include regenerative agriculture and organic agriculture, where you can use the soils to begin to trap and sequester carbon. Spending on more pedestrian-friendly and bicycle-friendly infrastructure, and also, yet only a fraction of all this money is actually going towards anything that will reduce pollution. Quoting from the article, overall net effect of the U.S. stimulus remains negative for the environment. So you think about that money, right? It's mostly just going towards supporting the established businesses. Joe Biden is hoping to push through $1.7 trillion of fresh spending, of which more will be focused on green initiatives. So here they're pointing out the Biden administration is trying to be more green than the Trump was, which was wanted to support more fossil fuels. Efforts by governments around the world to forge a green recovery. Remember, I'm going to slip into some of my funny voices and accents here. To forge a green recovery from the coronavirus pandemic are so far failing, even to reach the levels of green spending that followed the 2008 financial crisis. Only about 12% of the spending on economic rescue packages around the world is going towards low-carbon projects, according to a report by Vivid Economics. Whereas, in 2008, it was 16%. But to be fair, they point out that there's more money being spent now than there was in 2008. So more of it's green, but more of it's just towards high carbon intensive polluting industries. Stimulus spending in 30 key countries tracked by Vivid Economics amounts to $14.9 trillion in total, of which $4.6 trillion is flowing into sectors that are environmentally relevant, including industry, energy, waste, agriculture, and transport. But out of that, about $1.8 trillion is going to efforts that will have an environmental bonus in the form of lower greenhouse gas emissions, higher resource efficiency, or cutting pollution. By contrast, about $2.8 trillion of current stimulus spending is going on sectors that will raise emissions or increase pollution. So the world governments, ours and the US of A included, is subsidizing the poisoning and the pumping full of our own planet full of greenhouse gases and carcinogens. And if you got an economy that's killing you, you should question the economy. Remember that climate slogan, system change, not climate change. The biggest change since Vivid examined the global economic recovery was the inauguration of Joe Biden. He chose to prioritize, and I'm quoting here, he chose to prioritize on climate action from the first day. Those actions have pushed the U.S. up in Vivid's international rankings to 15th out of 30 countries tracked. But overall, the net effect of the U.S. stimulus remains negative for the environment because so much has been spent on fossil fuels. Biden, they say Biden is still hoping to push through $1.7 trillion of fresh spending, of which far more will be focused on green initiatives. But he is likely to meet resistance from sections of the Republicans in Congress. According to Vivid's index, in only 10 of the world's major economies was stimulus spending a net positive for the environment. Jeffrey Baer, lead author of the analysis, said governments can still spend to transform their economies to something cleaner and more resilient. He told The Guardian. Momentum is building. And now The Guardian cites that study that I cited for you earlier by Joseph Stiglitz, which said that green spending would create jobs, create economic benefits, reduce emissions, increase resilience to the impacts of climate breakdown. So here we're talking about, maybe like pavement that's more absorbent of all the new floodwaters, that type of thing. A grid that's protected against extremes of weather. Think Texas. And they include in that home insulation, public transport, broadband networks, I guess so people can work from home and not have to drive around so much. Tree planting, like I mentioned at the outset, for sequestering carbon. So now, you might ask yourself, well, if this green spending would create more jobs and more wealth than high carbon and infrastructure than just spending on business as usual, well, why aren't we doing that? Well, to paraphrase Bernie Sanders, all the money aggregates in certain vested industries. They have all the power and influence in our media and our government and then in our thinking. So people aren't thinking in those terms, and neither are the politicians. They're just thinking, get through this pandemic and just get everyone through it, get back to business as usual as quick as you can until another crisis, an even worse one, comes barreling down. This is a get what you bargain for system. That's how capitalism works. We are in a grand bargain with all established industries. You need to wake up to that. Bernie Sanders was trying to explain that, and I'm continuing to try to explain that. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please subscribe to my channel, please comment, please click the notification bell, please give it a like, share the videos, and until next time, peace be with you.